What's up, everyone? So here's the thing. When I am promoting you guys to be more masculine and to speak up when you see something is wrong, when I'm encouraging you guys to go out and improve your strength by working out and making yourself a more formidable person in the world, I'm telling people to become more educated in whatever way that is. For me, it was going to college. When I'm telling you guys to do these things, it's not really for what it was previously, which was, to become successful. Right now, with the future, where it is going, I think people need to start thinking about developing the skills that will allow them to survive. And that's the honest truth. Um, the world is changing rapidly. And there's a lot of things that are going on that if you don't have access to the material, you don't understand that it is happening. It's probably why I went back to college, really, when I think about it. There were a lot of things I didn't have access to. There was a lot of things that I thought was happening. And I decided, let me go see what's really happening. Because, you can't just rely on what people say. You have to be able to see it for yourself. Um, and I think overall, I would say there are people, groups of people, who are trying to destroy the culture of the West, um, and will do anything in their power to do so. And they will stand on their moral high horse in order to do it. So, what I am going to share with you today is a paper that I found. This is an academic paper published in Wiley, an academic journal, and it is indexed on PubMed, which is where most medical professionals will go if they want to hear the most up-to-date information or research um, in their field. Now, this paper is really bothersome to me because, I'm somebody who loves to speculate on what could be. I would never promote something that is intentionally hurting humans. Um, it's fun to think about where the extremes could go, but then at the end you say, no, that's not what we're going to do. This paper does the exact opposite. So what I want to do is share it with you because there are a lot of people right now who are talking about this topic of ticks. And there's a lot of people who are attacking them, saying they're conspiracy theorists and things like that. And I'm just going to show you guys that there is evidence in the academic literature that what people think is happening has been promoted and has been called a moral obligation, actually. The idea that people should be infected with ticks so that they become allergic to meat. So let's just start with the abstract of this paper. All right, so the paper was published in Wiley, an academic journal. It's called Beneficial Bloodsucking, and it was written by Parker Crutchfield and Blake Harris. You can find interviews or some of their videos online where they talk about this topic. And they are from the Department of Medical Ethics, Humanities, and Law from Western Michigan University. And this paper is indexed in PubMed, so it holds a lot of weight and there is a lot of credibility to it when you understand that those are some of the main publishers of research that professionals would use in the industry, and that as a student, I am promoted to use when I am looking for research. So that's why something like this holds a lot of weight. And the abstract claims that the bite of a Lone Star tick spreads alpha-gal syndrome, a condition whose only effect is the creation of a severe but non-fatal red meat allergy. And it's great because right now public health departments warn against Lone Star ticks and AGS, and scientists are working to develop an inoculation to AGS. But in this paper, the authors argue that if eating meat is morally impermissible, then any efforts to prevent the spread of tick-borne AGS are also morally impermissible. They go through explaining the symptoms of AGS and how it's transmitted via ticks. Then they argue that tick-borne AGS is a moral bioenhancer if and when it motivates people to stop eating meat. Then they defend what they call the convergence argument, which means that if Xing, which is allowing people to become infected so that they don't eat meat anymore, prevents the world from becoming a significantly worse place, doesn't violate anyone's rights, and promotes virtuous action or character, then Xing is strongly pro tanto obligatory, promoting tick-borne AGS satisfies all of these conditions. Therefore, they conclude that promoting tick-borne AGS is strongly pro tanto obligatory, something that must be done. It is presently feasible to genetically edit the disease carrying capacity of ticks. So they're already saying there is a mechanism of doing this. And if the practice can be applied to ticks carrying AGS, then promoting the proliferation of tick-borne AGS is morally obligatory. So they are basically going against everything that any sane human being would believe right now. You know, we are meat eaters. That is how we have survived. There are very few people who are not meat eaters. And to even waste your time theorizing about something like this is a waste of money and resource. But beyond that, they are doing more than theorizing. This isn't a philosophical argument. They are giving the mechanisms in this paper of how to go about making sure that this does happen. Even if it wasn't something that was done through the ticks, they have put forth a possibility of creating synthetic AGS that could simply be injected into meat in the grocery store. So when I tell you guys, you should be preparing yourselves for whatever is coming, this is why. This is the stuff that is going on behind closed doors. And it is an attack on people. And I think it's really important that we address this. So I just want to go through some of the quotes that I've highlighted from this paper, just starting with their premise, which states that among the best and most widely accepted arguments in applied ethics are those concluding that eating meat is morally wrong. You know, I get that this is a stipulation, that they're stipulating it, but throughout this paper, you realize this is not something that they are arguing to test an idea, because they are arguing that this should be implemented. And if you actually watch the videos of the authors of these papers talk about this topic, you will understand that this is what they truly believe. And that basically, because eating meat is wrong, that it is okay to do anything that would make it so people didn't want to eat meat. That's basically their argument in here. And they claim that there is always a moral disvalue in eating meat. And at the end of this paper, they conclude that we as a society, or maybe just them and other researchers, should promote a particular tick-borne syndrome, alpha-gal syndrome. That is their conclusion in this paper, because AGS promotes in the people who have it a resistance to eating mammalian meat. Thus, they eat less mammalian meat, which is an improvement in their capacity for moral behavior. I mean, I don't know who's going to tell me what capacity I have for moral behavior, because I don't agree with the morals or the premise that is here. And I don't think most people would. So maybe it's the people who are writing this paper who are acting immorally. They do say it is feasible to genetically edit the disease carrying capacity of ticks, and that if they are right, then today we have the obligation to research and develop the capacity to proliferate tick-borne AGS, and tomorrow carry out that proliferation. Because promoting tick-borne AGS prevents something bad from happening, doesn't violate anyone's rights, and promotes virtuous action or character. It follows that promoting tick-borne AGS is strongly pro-tantal, morally obligatory. So, you know, obviously these people are obligated to make sure that this does happen. Let's just start there. They're basically saying they feel obligated to do this. What actions are they taking behind the scenes to make sure that this happens? And another thing is that one must not block others' attempts to prevent wrong actions. It seems like you are trying to prevent the hardworking scientists from actually creating a way to prevent this disease. So you are acting immorally just for writing this paper, and whatever you do after this paper is probably even worse. Let's be honest. They claim that the permissibility of their recommendation depends on the feasibility of genetically editing the Lone Star tick in several ways. They can engineer the Lone Star tick to carry AGS. They can engineer the Lone Star tick so that it can survive and proliferate in more widespread conditions. And they can engineer the Lone Star tick so that it does not transmit other diseases. So they're just specifically deciding the one disease that we should get. I mean, personally, I would just say let's eradicate all ticks. It's probably the best thing that you can really do, or eradicate all disease from ticks. Why keep one or enhance one even, and then call it a bioenhancement? It's ridiculous. You can tell that these people are fools. It may also be feasible soon to enact the manipulation of Lone Star ticks so that they don't transmit tularemia and ehrlichiosis. Scientists have already demonstrated the ability to edit other ticks to be free of Lyme disease. So these things are like, this is a real thing. This isn't just like, maybe this could happen. It's like, no, we have the mechanisms to make sure that it happens. And we think it's obligatory that it does. So given the feasibility of both B and C, it is plausible that A, Lone Star ticks can be genetically engineered to carry AGS. If so, and given that these ticks may be free of tularemia and that, like other pets, may be engineered to populate and proliferate, our recommendation is plausibly feasible. So let's start working on it right away. And then they go over their convergence argument, which that if taking these actions prevents the world from becoming a significantly worse place, doesn't violate anyone's rights, and promotes virtuous action or character, then taking this action is strongly pro tanto morally obligatory. Also, promoting tick-borne AGS prevents the world from becoming significantly worse, doesn't violate anyone's rights, and promotes virtuous action or character. So promoting tick-borne AGS is strongly pro tanto morally obligatory. And what they have to do here is rely on a distinction between violation of one's rights and infringement upon one's rights, which they do admit here is what they will have to do when they decide to execute on this. So they claim that an infringement, but not a violation, is a justifiable transgression of rights. For example, vaccines, they don't actually violate your rights, they infringe your rights. Where tick-borne AGS, they argue, doesn't violate, though it may infringe, the same way that vaccines do. So basically, they're saying that, we can infringe on people's rights, we can kind of cross the line a little bit as long as we don't stop them from doing anything. So they can't just take the meat away from us. They have to make sure we get sick beforehand. And in a somewhat natural way, though they do even claim, as we will see as we get a little bit farther, that, worst case scenario, we create a synthetic AGS. And they explain what we would do with it. So tick-borne AGS will result in a far less meat eating, making the world and agents within it morally better than they would otherwise. Connecting one's wrongdoing with the allergic reaction is possible, and once made is likely to cause one to stop one's wrongdoing, presuming one wants to avoid those symptoms. In avoiding the symptoms of AGS, one avoids eating meat, and in so avoiding refrains from the immoral behavior and satisfies their moral obligation not to eat meat. So then they go even a step farther, and they basically associate people who eat meat with someone who abuses children when they say if someone was allergic to abusing children and broke out in hives after, for example, breaking their child's arm or forcing their hand onto a hot stove, we would ordinarily not judge the hives as a significant moral sacrifice. We shouldn't think any differently about the allergic reaction to eating meat. I really hope this guy or these authors get bit by ticks, honestly, because what they're explaining here is honestly disgusting. And then they say what the problem is, why this might be a little bit difficult, but they have solutions around it. The problem is getting it to the people who need it. People who don't eat mammals won't volunteer for it because they don't need it. But people who do eat mammals won't volunteer for it either, presumably because they want to continue eating mammalian meat. Yeah, because it's what we do. It's how we survive. If it's not voluntary, the only way to deliver AGS is by force. Yeah, no one's forcing me to do anything, either covert or overt. So they're saying we could do this covertly, or we could do this overtly. We could keep it a secret from everybody and just make sure it happens, right? And then call them conspiracy theorists when they say it is happening. But then this engages numerous normative obstacles. So, let's see what they actually do want to happen. It seems like if this couldn't happen, if they couldn't just infect the ticks, then maybe there's a more synthetic way of going about it, because they do know that you could create a synthetic AGS. And they are not claiming that synthetic AGS shouldn't be pursued or that it is impossible to implement permissibly. It may be feasible for a person to take synthetic AGS to grocery stores and secretly inject it into beef, pork, lamb, etc. Perhaps that method of delivery would overcome some of the empirical and normative obstacles. Our claim is merely that rejecting tick-borne AGS in favor of synthetic AGS is not as simple as it may initially appear. Wow. So then they anticipate all the objections to their position that promoting tick-borne AGS is morally obligatory. And they argue that none of these objections succeed. Let's just go through a couple. Their first is that if the promotion of tick-borne AGS is successful, it is more likely that people will substitute poultry and fish for red meat rather than becoming vegetarian, vegan. That's probably true. I mean, that's what they would have to do because people need meat. Even anyone will tell you, even the vegetarians, they look unhealthy. The vegans, they look unhealthy. I mean, let's be honest, they're not healthy people. It's kind of gross. So then they say the moral bioenhancement isn't feasible and therefore moral whatever. They have a bunch of arguments. It's bullshit. And that's basically where we're at. They're basically concluding, this is what we should be doing. All right, so we've made it through the paper and we've seen this is what is an argument in academic literature, that this is what we should be doing. This has nothing to do with helping people. This has nothing to do with making the world better. This is some academic who probably doesn't deserve to be there. I don't care what people say. The fact is, a lot of people make it to positions they're not supposed to be in because they're suck ups or they, did one thing to make somebody happy. That's what they do. They kiss ass. And then they start writing these stupid things. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm an academic right now. I'm in school and it makes me ashamed. It's like, what is going on? We have this great technology. We could actually really help people. The fact that this is like that suicidal empathy. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I love animals. I love my dogs. I love cats. I love horses. I love all the animals. I love seeing the animals. I live in the woods. I love seeing it. But the fact is, we need to eat. And the fact is, I'm not going to be an unhealthy vegetarian because anyone will tell you it is unhealthy. It's not what you're supposed to be eating. And I just think people should really know about this because I'm telling you guys, this is just one of the most explicit examples that I can show you guys without a bunch of pushback because it's obviously there. It's stated in here. These people are basically promoting warfare against the people of the country, of the West, probably all over the world, honestly. They do isolate one group and say, because it's only 1,500 people, we don't have to infect them. And they argue that eating meat isn't part of our Western culture. They point out how people get excited to eat bacon. There's a bunch of stupid things where you see they're attacking people. This is not just a philosophical argument, and people really need to understand this. When you come to me and you say no one's attacking you and things like that, I'm like, no. It is a different type of warfare that people don't even know is happening. But these articles and articles like these are very impactful. They do start to guide policy. They start changing the way people think. The next papers that need to be published are going to cite this one. So they are going to be based on this. And, because you're indoctrinated in these types of academic arenas, you can't go against it. So once it becomes the norm and this paper becomes accepted, it will be pushed even farther. And you know what? I hear all the people saying what's happening with the ticks right now. There's no reason to think it might not be happening. And people need to start thinking about this because, I love our technology. I love biotechnology. It's my favorite courses to take. I love learning about it. I love building things. I love testing things, but there are two ways it can be used. And as you can see, there are people who are definitely promoting it to be used in a nasty way. And I think more people, I personally promote people, once you've established yourself and things, go to college and combat these things. That's my thing. The best you can. One person can't do it all, but if enough people went to the colleges and called out the garbage research that's going on and the bad ideas that are going on, we could change this. We can change all these things from the transgender bullshit to, them trying to infect us with diseases to saying what is moral and what isn't moral, attacking our culture, the things that Americans have built for now decades. Like really, it's our culture. You can say it's not our culture. It is our culture and you can get over it. Like all of these people who think that this is true and is right, it's disgusting. And that's just, I had to share this with you guys. Do what you want with it. Keep thinking it's not true. Keep thinking this stuff isn't happening. That's good for you because I see it every day. Yeah, but I'll get back to my normal conversations after this. Thanks for watching.